Okay, so let's go into some time management tips. To-do list. How many of you have a to-do list? Yes, all hands up. How many of you have more than one? Okay. So my advice would be create one master to-do list, okay? In one place. Don't have a list that's in multiple places, and tie your list to deadlines or a calendar, okay? In other words, you need to know what you have to do and when it's due or when you have to do it, okay? I don't believe in dictating the kind of list or calendar or schedule that you should have. You should use whatever you want. If you want to get stickers and put them in your paper planner, great. Just make sure that your list, those things you need to do are tied to the day you need to do them, or there's a deadline associated with it, right? Because it has been proven that if you schedule your to-do list, you'll be more effective, okay? I have somewhat of a hard time with that because I don't want to muddy up my calendar with things that I then don't get to, but I know what I have to do on certain days because of the deadline. And I know the things that I have planned to do on a certain day that I don't actually have to do when something else comes up. And I think that's the challenge of the business that we're in. Prioritize your daily and weekly tasks, okay? Well, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then adjust your list based on new tasks or changing priorities. One of the agencies I worked with years ago had a young professional. She used to rewrite her to-do list every time she scratched something off or the priorities changed. So she actually spent more time rewriting her to-do list than she did getting stuff done. And we tried for the longest time, and it was color-coded. She had like purple pins and cute stuff, and her handwriting's really cute. But the time that she wasted on that list was crazy, right? So think about how you best can stay organized and how you can look at your list, right? And it's not just about the list, and we're going to talk about the big picture, but it's based on what are my deadlines for my client and what are the steps I have to go through to get to that, okay? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions or stories about their to-do list? What do you use? I actually use a paper planner right now. And the reason is because now I'm sure there is technology that will easily take care of this, but I have 5 different emails from different organizations that I work with, whether it's university, consulting groups, personal, all this stuff. And so I take all that and I plot it out on my paper planner or list by day, by what I have to do that day, right? The other thing is I'm a very visual, my memory works better when I write things down and then do it. Now, is that the most effective? I don't know. But I used to take written notes and then type them. Now I tend to try to take notes more on my laptop, but again, I know how my brain works. I've done things repetitively. I've written, I've typed, I've shared, and those things then, when somebody talks, I say, oh, I know that because I've ingrained it. So I think this is where, again, I would never want to dictate, and it may be where you have this software and these things that we really want you to use at this company or whatever it may be, but you need to look at you as your strengths or your weaknesses and say, this is what I need, and this is how I can do it most effectively. So I took this, I went to this session from a professional organizer, and she's the one who kind of shared the research of if you schedule your tasks, you're more likely to do it. So if you put it on your calendar for, 11 o'clock on this day, you're going to do it versus not. Well, that's really hard for me because as we know in our world, right, one, we don't want our calendar muddled up with necessarily all of our tasks and it looks like we have no time to have what we may need to have a meeting or a client or what, that kind of thing. But it's hard to say exactly when you're going to do it. And so I found that, but I found if you at least put it on the day you're going to do it, it helps. Okay, so again, I would just encourage you to don't try to juggle multiple lists. That's where the list is for you and only you, and nobody else needs to see it unless you share it with them and you need help prioritizing. So think about it that way. Okay, so prioritizing work. When you prioritize, all the important stuff gets done, right? Ideally. How do you prioritize your tasks? So this is what I've found works and have used over the years. By deadline, by delegation, and by quick elimination. Okay, so what are the things that I have to do at a certain time on a certain day because of the deadline? Okay, what are the things that I need to delegate because someone else has to do something? Okay, and if we hold back on delegating, we're giving other people less time to accomplish that task. And then the third is the quick elimination. What are the things that are going to take me 3 minutes to do, or 10, or the quick email that I need to send, and I can knock that off. So a great example, I had an account supervisor that worked for me. Maybe she wasn't quite an account supervisor yet, but she was very good, a very strong person for the agency, always a project manager. And she had a list in her notebook, and we were having some trouble moving some things along. And I said, well, tell me what's on your list. And when I looked at her list was not organized in any way by importance, or I couldn't tell, but it was a long list of things to do. And at the very bottom of the list were things like, send email to Blake to start drafting this, or send email regarding what. So she had a bunch of these, and I said, why didn't you just do this? Well, how long is it going to take you to send that email to ask that question? Well, no, I'm going to do it right now. And I literally sat there and did it in front of her. I said, that's done, and that's done. Why did you even put that on the list? Just do it, right? And so those quick elimination things are sometimes, we spend more time worrying about it, writing it down, than we do actually just do it, right? And again, there's sometimes that stubborn, I'm not going to do that right now because I'm busy writing this important thing. Just do it. Just do it. I promise. It will make your life easier, right? And then, of course, we know the deadline thing. But the reason that we have to prioritize and that we have to know what we have to do on a certain day or by a certain deadline is why in our business. Because something is always going to come up that's going to interrupt it, right? And so that's the main thing we have to prepare for. The other thing is, don't be vague. If a manager or team member is unclear, ask them for a deadline or specific timing. The same person that I was talking about with the list, man, this is where she did something really well. She'd come in, we'd have a discussion, and she'd repeat it back to me. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this and this and this. And when do you need this by? And I would usually say, oh, just as soon as you can get it. No, what is the deadline? And she would sit there in front of me until I gave her a deadline. And I didn't like it, right? Because that put me in like, oh, I don't want to commit to that. Like, ugh. But she put me on the spot so she could prioritize her time. And so I would encourage you, especially we have our interns and our younger staff members, right? Put them on the spot, because you can't prioritize your work if you don't know when the deadlines are. And if you're the manager, right, and you really don't, it's not urgent, then give them say, actually, I just need this by next Wednesday. Oh, okay, because all of a sudden you're probably going to lets those people take a big sigh of relief, like, oh, I don't need it tomorrow because I can't get to it, right? So recognize what's urgent and what's not, but put a deadline to it. Otherwise, we can't prioritize. And then if you need help, ask for it. If deadlines conflict, talk to the people and figure out which one is more important. We used to have our account coordinators, we typically met with them sometimes at the beginning of the week, and we looked at their list. We helped kind of look at priorities and that kind of stuff at the beginning of every week. But there were times when we had junior level employees that we had to meet with every morning to help prioritize their day. And it wasn't a punishment, it was a learning process, right? And so I teach some of my students sometimes, I go, you guys think y'all are on top of all of your schoolwork right now and all the things that you have, but just wait. Some of you that are highly organized and are very proud of that, you are going to go into an agency and you are going to struggle with some of that prioritization and time management. And they're like, why? Trust me, you will. Like, some of the most highly organized people do, because they don't understand how that give and take of the priorities, the deadline, or how to ask somebody and say, okay, you gave me this, but somebody else gave me this. Which one? Oh, you know what? That is more important. You should start that and then this one. Okay, got it. They sit there and they internalize and freak out. They choose one, maybe the wrong one, right? So again, just ask and recognize when your team needs help prioritizing, because it's not necessarily one of those things that just comes naturally. Any questions? Prioritizing? Any issues with prioritizing? It's hard, right? When you have a plan for what you're going to do and it gets just blown up for the day, right? And that happens in our business. So here's some more tips. Think about the priorities and where you need to spend your time, and then look at the big picture, okay, of your tasks and client goals. So if you are just looking at your list, as in every morning you walk in and, okay, here's what I'm going to do, you're missing the bigger picture, right? So we need to be looking at things like, are there things on my list that can be grouped together? In other words, I'm writing this piece and this piece, which are on the same topic, but they have different deadlines. But if I just did them together, I could knock them both out instead of waiting, moving on, then going back to it. Are there things on my list that I actually should delegate, or are there things on my list that I can't delegate, right? I know I have to do this for a particular reason, or are there things that, you know what, I need to give this to so-and-so because she was asking to get some experience in this, or this is the kind of thing we want our interns to be doing, or whatever it may be.
I don't say that delegation is not a one-way thing, so think about what are things that in a higher role can be more completed, so that you can, if you can't get everything done on your list, help, and they can probably do the task a lot faster.
That's a great point. What are things that you know somebody else can do? Now, again, they may not have the time to do it, but they may look and say, oh, you know what, let me take that, I'll do this and you do this and let's switch, right? So again, work with your team, not against each other, I think is a big point. What's the highest priority? In other words, what is it that I have to do today and I cannot leave until that is done? Or I know it's due to the client, I have to do it. And I cannot procrastinate anymore, right? You know what those things are. What's going to take the longest amount of time, okay, or a lot of focus, like I can't do this right now because I'm going to have to sit down and get in my zone, and I'm just not there right now, right? That's okay. Figure out when that is, when it has to be done, and when you're going to do it, right? And that's the way we're looking at our list. What conflicts are coming up? And these are conflicts of anything. Today you had an IGU at noon, okay? You might have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 10:30. You might be off for a holiday on Monday, right? So again, look at your big picture schedule and know, like, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be out. I'm going to be traveling. This is going to be a problem. and then you have to figure out how to balance that. And then also, don't forget to think about, is this what the client actually asked for? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? And I think we always need to be asking ourselves that, but you may have put something on your list and you're not really sure that that's what you should be spending your time on, right? And again, that's where your team and your leader comes in to figure that out. Okay, so looking at the big picture, and then plan your week and days with that big picture focus, okay? So I recommend looking at your list and your calendar at the beginning and end of every week and at the beginning and end of every day, okay? And you're moving things around and you're taking things off and you're deciding that you're going to delegate things, or you're deciding that you need help because you have a conflicting deadline, or you realize, oh my gosh, this didn't take me that long. I'm going to jump and knock something else off from tomorrow because I've got more time. And it's a balancing thing. But if you're not looking at the big picture, you're going to struggle. You're going to be every day, it's, I don't have any time. I don't have any time. I don't have any time. You're never getting ahead of it. Be realistic about how long tasks take. The more experience you get, the faster you're going to get, right? That's the great thing about moving up and getting more experience in what we're doing. But you have to plan accordingly, and I would overplan, and then you get rewarded when you get time back, right? Which is awesome when you say, I planned for 3 hours, it only took me 2, so I have 1 hour. And then what do you do with that hour? Usually, nothing. What you should do is go grab something else and do it, right? And I'm guilty all the time, especially as a consultant. It's like, oh, that didn't take me that long. Guess what I'm going to do now? Read my book. I'm going to watch the show on Netflix, right? Guess what I should have done? God, I could have knocked out this thing I was going to do tomorrow, and it was only going to take me 45 minutes, and then I was ahead. No, and it's like that stubbornness in us, right? But then I'm never one step ahead, right? And it's a cycle. Prepare for those unexpected client needs to interrupt your tasks, okay? They're always going to happen. Your boss is always going to come and have something more you can do, or something, oh, we forgot about this, okay? Hopefully you're planning accordingly, but again, there's always things that happen. It's going to completely mess up your list. That's why you need to know what are the things that if I only had time for one thing because we had a client issue, what is it? And everything else gets bumped. Or what is that one thing? I just need to spend 45 minutes tonight at home doing this one little thing on the couch in the living room, and I'm going to be great for tomorrow, right? And if you know that, then you're going to have a lot of pressure taken off of you.